Disinformation continues to be a serious concern, especially with national elections coming up in less than 2 years. The good news, it seems that Congress is finally ready to act. The terrible, horrible, no good, very bad news, the pending bills, especially House Bill 9465, are atrocious. What do we do with these dangerous anti-disinformation bills? Hi, I'm John Nery, and you are in the public square. We are joined today by an esteemed colleague, journalist Rowena Paraan of the Movement for Media Safety PH and training director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, and by a young colleague who is doing important work, Rossine Fallorina, managing director of Sigla Research Center. They have been fighting against disinformation for years and were part of the groups that issued powerful statements against the pending bills. Welcome, Weng and Ross, and thank you for joining us in the public square.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Let me start by asking you, okay, can you give us some context about House Bill 9465, which has been passed in Congress?
Pumasa siya ng hindi namamalayan. At least ng media. No?
Okay.
Nagulat kami na umabot na siya sa ganun ka-advanced na stage. Although there were some individuals like sila Carlos Nazareno who were actually consistently flagging, oh may ganitong nangyayari, oh may ganitong, yung mga media ba dyan hindi magre-react. And then, hindi nga. Hindi siya masyadong pinansin. But eventually, nung pumasa na, so doon mas nag-take note yung mga, at least yung mga media organization.
This was also in the wake of the tumultuous days, the week in the Senate, right? And then also the run-up to the impeachment trial, among many other things, no? So medyo natapunan din, ano? Does the fact that the lead sponsor is identified as majority leader and the president's son, Sandro Marcos, have anything to do with this surprising fact na June ba yan? Biglang passed on third reading?
I think just to go back a little bit, kasi matagal naman na gustong mag-legislate ng Congress. I mean, even before the previous, even in the 19th Congress, there were already talks about legislating fake news. That's why they invited, for example, mga vloggers, Duterte-aligned vloggers, to, get at them and to, to make a statement that there has to be something done kasi kayong mga vloggers ang nag-spread ng fake news or what they call disinformation. And so matagal nang may impetus yung Congress to legislate. Then this time around, under the and there were some bills that were filed in the 19th Congress, then came the 20th Congress, and of course there were legislators who refiled bills. And then I was part of the technical working group, and we were invited as resource persons doon sa Committee on Public Information. And so what transpired was they invited members of civil society, media groups to provide statements on how we should legislate on against disinformation. Then each one provided their statements, run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. And then eventually, when the first meeting ended, and then we asked kung ano yung magiging mother bill that will be the topic of or subject of the discussion, they mentioned that it's going to be the majority leader's version of the House bills. And then during this time, I think there were around, if not 15 plus, maybe around 20 versions of legislations and bills that were filed. Some by a number of the congressmen attended those meetings. Alam ko sila Antonino Roman filed their own version, sila and sino pa ba? Basta some others. But then they came up, the committee chair mentioned that it's going to be Sandro Marcos's version. And I think it has to be Sandro Marcos's version because there's a commitment coming from the president to really legislate against fake news. Okay. But it's so hypocritical and funny enough because, as we all know, disinformation in the Philippines, parang yung number one perpetrator and purveyor nan is the state. And as we all know, going back to the 2022 national elections, si President Bongbong Marcos talaga was enjoyed the fruits of the disinformation labor, as we would as we would say. Kasi siya yung biggest recipient and then the beneficiary of disinformation and fake news. So, it's been a long time coming, and I agree, and there's a lot of like political context and history that needs to be said as well. I think the fracture din ng Uniteam is also was also a turning point for the government to also legislate, because as we all know, malakas yung network of vloggers ng mga Duterte. Not so much sa Marcoses, kasi we've been monitoring it over the years and over. So hindi masyadong malakas yung network ng vloggers ng mga Marcoses, but the Dutertes, very powerful force yan. And so if the government or if the Marcos family wants to get at the Dutertes, they have to address this problem.
This fracture of Uniteam, no, is a fracture between two political factions that have enjoyed the benefits of disinformation labor.
Yeah.
No, to quote Ross, no, as early as I think 2009 or 2010, Marcos family was already laying down its infrastructure, no, alternative information infrastructure sa YouTube. And of course, we saw from 2016, no, during the campaign, actually from 2015, campaign of Duterte for the presidency, lumalabas na rin yung network niya. No?
Yeah.
I do remember that as early as the 18th Congress, there was already a couple of bills filed. I think Joel Villanueva, I think if I remember correctly, had one. But ang problema nun, wala silang consultation. Tapos, there was even an attempt to define fake news or disinformation.
Yeah.
Parang nadala lang sa political trend, no?
And mainly dahil napipikon sila. Dahil nagiging target sila. So I think yun yung problema. It's not really coming out of a study dun sa problema, but because mainly naging target sila ng so-called fake news, kaya sila nagre-react. Remember, there were some hearings, Senate hearings, and these were the times na may mga in-invite na mga media organizations. But I think for this bill sa House and sa Senate, mainly ang in-invite nila na media ay yung merong mga fact-checking programs. So Verifiles, Rappler, and Press One were the ones invited. Hindi siya katulad ng iba pang mga bills na may impact sa journalism, like libel. Pagdating dun sa mga yan, mas malawak yung invited groups. But this time, medyo mas limited. And I think that's partly why hindi masyadong nagkaroon ng response from the media community.
Yung paglabas nung when House Bill 9465 passed Congress, no? Nagulat ba kayo dun sa final draft? Were there major changes that you were able to track over the course of time?
We weren't so much surprised, mostly because, again, we understood na kung ano yung initial version, which was the Sandro Marcos's bill, is still going to look the same, you know, when they pass it sa House. But there have been consultations that were conducted at least two TWGs, and internally we're working with democracy.net and the consolidated comments from civil society to really respond to and provide specific recommendations on the first version, which was Sandro Marcos's version. In all fairness, malaki naman yung departure. Madaming changes actually. Because the first version of the bill was just super dangerous kasi parang censorship bill siya. Mainly because it looks at individual accountability of people sharing and spreading fake news and disinformation. Yun talaga yung atake nun eh. There weren't a lot of provisions when it comes to platform accountability, platform transparency. None of that was present in the Sandro Marcos version of the bill. So it was really targeting individuals who would spread fake news. And no mechanisms at all to how to penalize, for example, operating and financing troll farms in as much as andun yun. But in the final version in House Bill 9465, there are additions to the bill that was a bit more receptive to the comments by civil society. Kasi meron na silang section, for example, on the digital platform accountability, which was absent before. In the original. So they're listening. Pero what we still find problematic with the bill is that there is still yung individual accountability, yung penal provisions, as we call it, that would punish that would impose fines and impose imprisonment to those who spread disinformation.
Before we do a deep dive into 9465, and before we leave this introductory part, no, where we talk about the context, no, I'm glad that you brought up the fracture in unity, for instance, or the early years when the politician or the political class started to feel that they were being targeted, bumabalik sa kanila. Any other contexts that I might have missed that helps explain where we are right now?
Elections, of course.
Okay.
Preparation for the elections. Initially nga inisip namin, bakit minamadali? Is it because of the impeachment? But definitely elections, it's playing a big role here. So preparation siya for the elections.
Okay. Okay, that's anything else, Ross?
Yeah, I think it's really, as Ma'am Weng mentioned kanina, parang legislators are taking offense na madami ng social media posts that are being published out there and wala na silang control of the public sphere, of the digital public sphere.
Okay.
And so we've had internal discussions and ang alam ko ay inis na inis yung mga, at takot na takot ang mga legislators kasi baka may lumabas at pumotok with regards to the flood control issue.
Okay.
Then they will just brand it as disinformation, as fake news. And so they're very fearful na they cannot control the digital public sphere and they want to, parang gusto nilang pangunahan na ngayon.
Okay.
To be able to save themselves. And you can see it in the tenor kasi ng hearings. Dati, parang, for example, si Marcoleta was just going at specific media organizations, di ba? For bakit ganito yung pinapublish ninyo against me.
Hindi ako in-interview.
Hindi ako in-interview. You know, people are just airing out their grievances and personal vendetta. So there is a lot of buy-in talaga for legislators to do this. But then again, maganda ding context building yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Weng and what you mentioned earlier na sa sobrang daming issues ngayon, nababury na siya. And this is why we were very much concerned na there's not a lot of traction when the bills were being deliberated. Mostly because kakasimula lang ng impeachment noon. Diba? The reason why, for example, there weren't a lot of minority legislators who were there to oppose yung discussions, for example, was mostly because they were at the Committee on Justice hearings to try to address the impeachment issue against Vice President. And so many issues, but definitely this is something that legislators have the impetus to really legislate.
Maybe we can also include this as part of the context, but I think it bears belaboring. We are not against anti-disinformation bills, right?
Of
we
course.
we want an anti-disinformation law, right? I mean, that's
Or a
right?
government response to it.
Or a government response.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, so we just want to be clear about
Yes,
that,
yes.
right? Yeah.
At this point, sino bang hindi galit sa platform? Sa talamak na, diba,
Okay.
false information out there. I think every Filipino has their own frustrations.
Okay.
Diba, na tipong sobrang polluted na ng information ecosystem. There's not a lot of truthful and reliable and credible information out there. Meron, mas malaki ang distrust against the media. People don't turn to legacy media anymore when it comes to finding credible sources of information. So everyone has their own frustration na tipong they don't see the information that they want. It's the things are not credible out there. But at the same time, we understand that the government has to respond to it. But at the same time, kami sa civil society, our role is to really make sure na kung ano man ang laws na ipapasa, it won't create a chilling effect against the researchers, especially against journalists, for example. I know we're gonna go deep dive on it, pero sa first version and sa version ni Sandro Marcos of the bill, aggravating circumstance yung pagiging journalist. So if you spread false information and journalist ka, mas mataas ang penalty na makukuha mo kaysa sa ordinary Filipino. So how would that work? Though?
Maybe this is really the way the political class regards journalists. It is an aggravating circumstance.
Exactly.
Okay. One of the things that struck me when I read the two statements, and I signed up for one of them, full disclosure, was the argument that mali itong bill 9465 because the focus is still content.
Yeah.
Okay? I think I understand this, no? But can you explain to our audience, hindi ba dapat content? I mean, we're dealing with content. So when we say, mali kasi content focused, what do we want to say here?
Okay. So the reason why we are against any sort of content moderation and regulation is because it will inevitably lead us to a path wherein government will have to decide what is acceptable speech and what isn't acceptable speech.
Okay.
And so I think it's up for the public to decide what is acceptable and what is not. And to be fair, there are standards naman even within platforms that say kung anong pwede at anong hindi. And so why do we have to give that power or responsibility to the state? Because once you go down that path, it's very easy for the state to just say kung anong acceptable speech at anong hindi. And with regards to the current context, for example, in the flood control scandal, you can't have any journalist, doing investigative reporting because that's going to be against, the state will argue against national security, it will impede the operations of the government, etc., etc. So, mahirap mag-legislate when it comes to content to that effect because you're dealing with a juggernaut. You don't know what the state will do. And the easiest way to try to make it appear to the public that you're doing something about it is to make examples out of the legislation, diba? They won't go after politicians who are funding troll farms, and they won't go against, they won't go after advertising in PR agencies and firms who are the chief architects of network disinformation in the Philippines. But what they will do, if you do content moderation and you put penalties, is hahanapin nila, di ba, yung mga vloggers, yung mga ordinary citizens na madaling kasuhan.
So, parang another way of looking at this is pag content focus, it's the small fry who will pay.
And ideas, di ba? Pag sinabi mong content, it's what you're saying.
Okay.
So, laki ng danger na you get penalized for what you believe in, for your advocacy, kasi nakafocus siya dun sa kung ano yung sinasabi mo. And di ba sinasabi natin, in a democracy, dapat lahat tayo meron tayong karapatan na magkaroon ng sariling opinion, ng sarili nating gustong sabihin, dapat meron kang kalayaan at meron kang platform na pwede mong paglagyan ng kung ano yung gusto mong sabihin. Sa ganitong klaseng bill, or sa ganitong pag napasa siya at naging siyang batas, ang focus niya would be content. Kung ano yung sinasabi mo. So, ang magiging basis ng action against you is what you're saying. Na hindi sinasabi na tama palagi, pero ang laki ng danger ng censorship, ng infringement sa freedom of expression, even freedom of the press. Sa ngayon pa, may chilling effect na eh. So, pag yung isang government official, kinall out niya yung isang journalist or kahit sino na nag-post sa social media, may impact na yun, hindi lang dun sa individual. I think ang isang magandang nagawa ng mga organizations like yung organization nila Ross, when they attended the public hearing ng House Bill, na ipasok nila yung amplification, yung distribution, and yung especially yung tungkol sa platforms. Kasi dahil ang tingin ko na motivation ng mga legislators or many of them is personal. So ang tendency nila is tingnan sino yung nagsabi at ano yung sinabi. Hindi pumaabot dun sa paano yung mechanism. Tapos yung systematic, yung organized na disinformation.
Bumabalik ba to, Ross, dun sa sinabi mo na individual accountability?
Yeah, definitely. Kasi it's so difficult to legislate when you're going up against siguro millions of Filipinos who are potentially spreading false information at the end of the day. Hindi ba mas madali na you go after the platform who is allowing all this disinformation and false information to thrive? Parang, I mean, it's a matter of feasibility din eh. And then if you entrust the government to legislate at that level and to provide penalties, parang it will inevitably lead to a situation wherein they will selectively choose kung sino amongst the thousands of Filipinos who are spreading false information out there will be charged with the crime. And then obviously, sasampulan nila. Obviously, they'll have a hierarchy. Sino-sino, di ba? Those who pose a threat against national security, those who are exposing government corruption, for example, kasi self-interested din naman ang mga legislators natin at the end of the day, right? And so, yun yung
also at the start of the day.
At the start na
From beginning to end.
Ganon yun. So, mahirap talaga. I mean, we understand that there has to be, parang we need to do something about disinformation. Pero ang sinasabi namin ay, there are so many ways to address the problem. But going at individuals, posting whatever is out there is really not the way. Especially because when you talk about disinformation in the Philippines, hindi na siya clear-cut nowadays. That's why we call, in our context, in our research, tinatawag na namin siyang influence operations. Influence operations, which means strategic communications siya that isn't particularly or deliberately or blatantly false, diba? But it hides behind, for example, opinion ko to This is satire, this is my opinion, this is my political belief. But they twist some truths. Kaya, mahirap na to legislate at that level of what is true and what is false, right? Kasi hindi na siya ganun kadali. Years prior, when we were studying disinformation, we could still theorize and we could still conceptualize at the level of ano ba ang mga conspiracy theories. Kasi alam mo na false yun, walang pinagbabasehan. But nowadays, wala nang ganun Everything is hidden behind political commentary. Everything is hidden behind satire. And sa ganung instance wherein you have a lot of gray area and that's a preponderance of the content you see now online. How do you legislate? How will the government pick and choose kung ano ang uunahin nila, di ba?
So what you're saying is, yung individual comments, opinions, at saka yung organized, ay walang differentiation the way the bill is written. Hindi niya pinag-iiba yung troll farms at saka yung si Aling Barang na nagsabi lang na bakit ganito yung baha sa amin. Tapos yung definition din dun sa mga bills kasi even in the Senate version, napaka vague and broad. Hindi ba ang batas dapat very clear siya? Kasi literal siya So dapat clear yung definition. So kapag ganun yung definition, kahit sino pwedeng targetin. So yun yung nakakatakot
Well, we'll go back to that argument, na yung legal uncertainty puts us in peril. Also, we'll go back and spend some more time on platforms, But I'm trying to understand this. So, yung content focus, yung individual accountability, parang yun yung parang hinahabol. Yung maybe we'll just end up making an example of some people, parang ganyan. Would it be correct to say na parang this is a very 20th century way of understanding the problem, but 21st century na tayo? Parang napakaluma. Panahon pa ng first Marcos. Parang gano'n na yung... gano'n nga, parang censorship na yung framework.
Fake news
I'm not even sure if you were born, if you made it to the 20th century, Ross.
So tama si Ma'am Weng kasi kino-conflate niya yung individual actors to those who are part of the disinformation economy and the entirety of the network. The way we see it is the ordinary Filipino becomes a victim and a purveyor of disinformation because by design, ganun talaga yung gustong gawin ng mga chief architects of disinformation. They want to seed narratives so that you have a cabal of, genuine supporters who can defend the narrative, who can amplify it. So, bakit natin pinipinalize yung karamihan ng mga Pilipino who are victims of disinformation, who are profiting from it financially, di ba? So we have to target those individuals, and that's why we talk about amplification. We talk about, for example, distribution, accountability against PR and ad agencies, those who finance troll farms, those who finance, for example, media organizations or pseudo media organizations doing campaign work or influence operations entirely.
Let's talk platforms, Facebook infamously contributed to the massacre of Rohingya people, dahil sa mga Facebook accounts ng Myanmar military, I think, so parang kailangang panagutin sila for that kind of, I mean, it's the scale, right? the platform allows your message to reach thousands of people in a matter of seconds, and that's very new. That's very 21st century. No? So can we talk about that? Up to what extent does HB 9465 recognize this role of platforms, and up to what extent is it ready to sanction them or penalize them?
Ang isang objection na malaki sa the way the bill is written ay walang hindi mo mape-penalize actually yung platforms.
Okay.
Even in the Senate version.
Okay.
Kahit pa sinasabi nila na anti-platform ito, hindi yun yung claim, no, yung Robin Padilla version. They're saying na mas anti-platform. Pero and pag tinignan mo naman mas maraming provision sa Senate bill, sa Senate version. Pero ultimately, hindi yung platform yung pinaparusahan because you're focusing on content. So yung enabler, like the platforms, walang clear na accountability, walang pagsisingil, walang mechanism sa kung paano mo siya i-hold accountable. So yun, yung the mere absence, in fact, it's a big
So how does HB 9465 regard platforms?
Yeah. So it provides specific obligations to platforms in general, but there's also differentiation between very large online platforms.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you talk about very large online platforms, ang threshold nila, I think 10% of the Philippine population.
And that came out later
During the, during the consultation.
Because of the inputs of
Okay.
Oo, kasi it's so impractical na tipong if you're a social media platform that has like 500 user base in the Philippines, di ba? Parang, why would you go at that? You have to start dun sa top. The largest online platforms na natalamak ang disinformation. So, in fairness naman to the bill, it does require that platforms do some risk assessments in terms of kung ano ang mga harms that they expect and what kinds of reasonable measures that are being taken. It will also require the disclosure of ads that are being run and who are monetizing from the platform. So may mga several provisions naman talaga siya that try to instill some sort of a transparency in terms of systems and enforce some sort of parang risk assessment and risk assessment provisions. Pero at the end of the day, no, I mean, and there are provisions naman of providing fines. May warning initially, and then there will be some fines na tipong, I think this is 3% or a certain percentage of their revenue here in the Philippines. Pero I don't think they'll ever test this out at this point in time. So ang issue with that, I guess our issue with the bill is that why do you have to include specific individual accountability and penal provisions against persons instead of just focusing on the platforms themselves? Okay. Because again, viability, feasibility, mas madali yung ganong approach. And so, at the end of the day, parang it will impose fines against platforms. It will force them to create mechanisms. And in the Senate version, for example, kasi may gusto silang buuin na parang media integrity council. There are provisions of platforms working with DICT to do content takedowns depending on how DICT would see it fit. So dangerous yung provision.
Which is a problem. Kasi ang gagawin na lang ng platform is to take down yung tingin nilang false
information. And I think the biggest objection with the current version of the bill is may liability shield sila. So there's a certain line there that says na if platforms knowingly parang allow false information and disinformation to spread in those instances, yun lang yung instance that you can call them out, that they can be held accountable under this bill. But that's a very high bar to breach because they can always feign ignorance, diba? Na parang hindi namin to alam. They can always say na according to our assessments, diba, walang mga ganong risks. So inevitably, you end up with a version of the bill na might not be enforceable to begin with. And you might not be able to go after the platforms that the bill also intends to go after.
But what should be in any anti-disinformation law as far as platforms? What should be in an anti-disinformation law as far as platforms are concerned? What would be the minimum?
What would be the minimum?
That we ask? I mean, and are we in a position to actually enforce them? That was part of your earlier answer, no? Is our market big enough?
Big enough,
to serve as some sort of pressure?
Yeah, feeling ko we have enough leverage against platforms. We think na when they say, for example, na, well, we're not profitable in the Philippines anyway, diba? So parang they're willing to pull out and things like that. I don't think that that's the case because tingnan mo naman ang user base sa Pilipinas and yung penetration. When you talk about Facebook, it's like 99% na ata, diba? And you talk about surveys sa Pulse Asia that say na parang 90% of Filipinos get their news coming from Facebook and not on television, not on radio. And so, mataas na yung penetration ng platforms. Talk about Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is rising nowadays, YouTube. Na I don't think that they would be willing or na they would go to the extent that they will just pull out. And so we have enough leverage to go after them. And you can impose fines because they are a company and they are doing business here in the Philippines. So kaya mo silang panagutin. Pero ang problema ay, is the government trying to even test that?
Okay.
They're not, di ba? Will they test it even? We're not sure. Kasi parang sometimes they just have discussions with government agencies and then the issue is settled, right? You see naman in the past few months, madaming issues ang DICT with platforms. Talk about Roblox, talk about Signal, Telegram, because ang daming krimen na nangyari, which we don't dispute naman the fact. But their approach to it is parang, we will announce that we will ban the platform to force platforms and representatives to come at the table and to negotiate. And then at the end of the day, walang changes na nangyari. They do meet with the DICT secretary, pero wala pa rin, di ba? Wala pa rin nangyari. So I don't know what exactly the approach here ng gobyerno when it comes to that. I don't know if it's a matter of optics to them, but at the same time, parang on one hand, it's all optics to them, walang ginagawa. But on the other hand, they want to legislate this na sobrang malayo naman. And it's so extreme to the extent that we cannot get behind it.
Ang laging reason naman nila is kasi hindi nila kayang i-implement whatever sanction dahil hindi nakabase sa Philippines. But recently, there were statements from the ICT na kaya daw nilang mag-implement after nitong Zamboanga incident.
Yeah.
So, they're saying now na kaya daw. Gusto ko nga kunin yung video ng statement na yon. Kasi that has always been their reason na bakit hindi nila kayang kontrolin yung platform.
When you said earlier na kung take-down lang, parang kulang, what's wrong with the take-down-only policy?
Yung take-down kasi kung platform deciding, para wag sila i-penalize. They can just take down the post na ang hirap naman kasi ngayon sila naman yung gagawa ng desisyon. So I think ang kailangan natin is to impose policies, rules wherein you promote transparency, accountability, magkaroon ng concrete na mechanism paano to implement. I think there are some proposals already, pero hindi naman yun talaga na ilalagay sa table. So, accountability, transparency ng operations sa mga platform, yung mga algorithm,
amplification.
So, yun yung mga kailangan nating malaman.
Yeah.
Yung mga ordinaryo, like ako, halimbawa, I'm not very techy, hindi ko masyadong alam. Pero, di ba, dapat maintindihan namin kung paano nagpa-function yung Facebook, paano nagpa-function yung ibang platforms. So, kasama yun dun sa transparency so that we can make a decision on whether we want to continue using this platform na meron pala silang ganong ginagawa sa akin. Pero hindi ganun kasi ka-transparent.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I think if there is a bill, and if we want regulation, dapat yung regulation kasama yon. Hindi lang yung may problema pa nga ako dun sa sa council which gives government power, diba, to take down posts, which is also dangerous.
Yeah. So some of the concrete provisions that we can ask platforms, kasi
Yes.
the idea is really platform accountability and then instilling systems of transparency is, for example, public ad repository. Ipakita ng platforms sinong mga pages and persons yung nagfa-finance ng mga ads. Because there's been an investigation by Rappler, diba? Na tipong there are certain pages that are being paid by politicians. I forgot kung ano yung pangalan ng page na yun. Pero parang, but the platforms have this information. Put it out in the public so that researchers can see it, so that researchers can, and journalists can call out na there are these off-platform actors that are running ads, that are being financed by this specific politician. Kasi ma-analyze mo rin naman at the end of the day sino ba yung prina-prop up nila na candidate, sino yung whitewash, at sino naman yung kaninong reputation naman yung dinidestroy sa kabila. So disclosures when it comes to ad repositories, disclosures when it comes to monetization, kasi nakikita din natin na there are also actors that are not being financed by politicians themselves, but are earning from the platform itself. We've interviewed influencers and content creators on the platforms at sinasabi nila na hindi naman talaga sila supporters ni President Marcos, but because during the elections, yun yung patok na content.
Yeah.
Doon sila kikita. They will create, they become, Marcos supporters or Duterte supporters, mostly because they see that there is an appetite for that sort of a content. And so, they monetize from the platform, they earn from it, especially YouTube live streams. Imagine every day, 1 oras lang sila nagla-live stream, pero sandamakmak na ads ang pupunta sa kanila. Ako, I've been monitoring, for example, si Maharlika, tapos may mga ads pa yan when it comes to, parang money exchange or money transfers sa mga OFWs. So, nakakapag-monetize siya from just, creating content. Sometimes it's not controversial, sometimes it is controversial. But the fact na platforms will have information about it, diba? Kailangan i-disclose din yon. Of course, the minimum as well, risk assessments. Do they see na there's like public health misinformation in the platform? How much of it are we seeing online? So that the government can be a bit more knowledgeable about it. They can do something about it. So, ganon. Disclosures, transparencies, all these kinds of systems na feeling namin ay at the minimum, pwede natin hingin sa platforms.
It becomes even more important sa ngayon. Katulad ng minention kanina, if people are getting their information from the platforms, mas lalong mahalaga yung transparency and accountability.
Itong potential remedies regarding platforms, public ad repository, provision on monetization, yung risk assessment.
Yeah.
Are they not in HB 9465?
They are. Some of it are included. Some of it are included. Kaya nga, ang objection na lang namin is, let's turn this bill into a platform accountability bill.
Okay.
Instead of having yung dangerous penal provisions against individuals who share fake.
Pero hindi pa rin ganun kalinaw yung mechanism, paano mo i-hold accountable. Hindi pa rin siya ganun kaklaro. It's there, pero kulang siya.
You already alluded to one other danger from this kind of bill, from 9465, and if there's a counterpart in the Senate that will also, match it, which is the government as the arbiter of truth, not only of accepted speech, but actually of truth. I mean, how do we? What kind of provision should be included in a bill that will do away with this? Itong government as arbiter of truth.
Yeah. So
do we leave it to the platforms? Do we leave it to the influencers? Paano ba?
Kaya nga, any provisions when it comes to content moderation.
Yeah.
Kailangan talaga tanggalin. I think it's better to leave it to the public what they think is, what is truthful and what is not. Because again, we don't want to end up in a situation where the state will define it for you. I understand that the setup is problematic pa rin. Kasi either way, di ba, you go to extremes. Para kung hahayaan mong problema, maraming talamak disinformation.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you try to legislate that, may chilling effect din naman. So, I guess that's the golden question talaga. How do you strike a balance? And we think na instead of going at content regulation, because at the end of the day, it's a media ethics question, right? How should people be more responsible when it comes to engaging with platforms, when it comes to saying what they want to say in the digital public sphere? That's not something that the state should be concerned about. Of course, pwede naman i-instill nila, di ba, sa education system. You look at Scandinavian countries wherein they teach media literacy, di ba? Kaya nagiging responsible citizens sila. Those are the approaches that we think could work, pero long-term fixes yun. And it doesn't reduce the problem of disinformation as platform-specific lang or tech-deterministic lang. So, the solutions that we are trying to offer are long-term. Medyo mahirap siyang, kumbaga, kagatin ng publiko because everyone senses an urgency to really legislate. Pero, yun nga, on the other side of it, if you want to legislate to the level of, deciding what is truthful and what isn't, diba? Parang ano magiging hitsura ng public sphere natin at the end of the day? We're not so sure.
We're running long, but I want to ask you about. Let's do a hypothetical.
Sure.
All right. A hypothetical, but based on very real events. No. So let's say after Tacloban, after Zamboanga, there's a surge in news or disinformation, false information about school shootings, right? And then people on their own, they see, they share it. And so in a matter of hours, millions of people have seen these bits of false information. Let's say on Facebook, right? If HB 9465 was law at the time this hypothetical situation happened, how will it apply to the situation? Will it be able to sanction, stop Facebook from further spreading? What will happen to the millions of Facebook followers who've already seen the false information? So can we workshop this, so to speak? No?
That's a good. Ang una niyang ipipenalize yung kapitbahay na nag-share, na nag-comment. Paano siya aabot sa platform? Depende.
As it stands now. Yeah?
As it stands, kasi meron ng liability shield ang platforms. If unknowingly nag-spread yon without their knowledge, and they will always claim that, parang hands off, and then they got off scot-free. And so you cannot hold them accountable. What you can do is to request na tipong, there's this content, kasi di ba ni-live stream yung shooting, and you have metadata. You can force Facebook probably to, block yung pag-upload ng certain video na yun.
But you can already do that even
But you
without
can
the
already
law.
do that.
Yeah.
Tsaka from our experience naman, like platforms are willing to work with government when it comes to, for example, child safety concerns and scams, etc. But they won't do so when it comes to disinformation because, again, thorny issue. It's a political question at the end of the day about what is true and what isn't, and is it political speech and if it's not political speech. So if it's a matter of arguing na there's public harm and this is child safety, there are specific guidelines naman and community standards na meron ng platforms that you can hold them into account or just ask them to to comply at the end of the day. So under the current setup, kaya naman. But even with this bill, I don't think it would be able to force platforms or penalize them in the way that it intends to because of the liability shield. But then, at the end of the day as well, tama si Ma'am Weng. Ipipenalize na yung mga nag-upload ng videos na yon and not necessarily the platforms who are allowing for it to
Basically, ganun pa din. I mean, whether meron kang law or yung bill na yan has become a law, wala siyang bagong dinadagdag. You can actually do all the things that Ross said, even without that bill.
And that's part of the argument, right? In
Yeah.
your statement that the laws already exist for this, no? Of course, iba pa yung platform
Yeah, not against
accountability.
platforms
Yeah, but
specifically. Yes.
some of the certain things. But what I'm taking away from you is that this bill is very dangerous because it actually focuses on the individual person who may deliberately or accidentally share misinformation,
Yeah.
disinformation, and then the
Exactly.
full force of the law bears down on him,
Yeah.
right?
Parang-
So we're talking. So dapat we should think of the structures, no, the systems, so platforms. What about telcos? Are they included in this bill? Should they be
are
included?
not. Hindi sila included sa bill nito because you're talking about intermediaries and then platforms where the content is hosted, where it is disseminated and shared.
No, but interestingly, after the Zamboanga shooting, PLDT Smart came out with a statement
Exactly.
saying we're gonna
Yes.
right.
So they're gonna block it. And then I've seen
So it's like
oo.
okay, good news, but also bad news because
Yeah.
Exactly.
that's so much power.
That's so much power, exactly. There was this post from the former Solicitor General, Florin Hilbay, and tama naman na parang some people are praising, the telcos for doing that. But at the end of the day, do they have the power? Should they have the power to decide what is, again, acceptable and what isn't? Kasi malaking ano yan eh. It's a juggernaut of a power that you can't just, give to the state easily. Kaya
Should it be part of
should it be part
of this
that is a
of this law, or
that's a
should
good
it require another?
Baka I think our approach here is when the discussion on the bill started, we said na the approach is so terrible because kitchen sink siya. Lahat ng mga potential na problema nilalagay nila sa bill na to. The earliest versions, it had like issues of public health, national emergencies, national security, lahat ng concerns on that under this bill. And even up until now, issues of national security still remain. So sa amin ay, if you want to solve the problem of health misinformation, file a separate bill on that. Because yung health misinformation is radically different from how political disinformation or electoral disinformation functions and kung anong structure niya. Iba yon. Iba ang misinformation sa disinformation sa influence operations, di ba? And so, it has to be targeted. And then we have colleagues as well who are interested to legislate against. And so even civil society organizations are calling on the government to talk about FIMI, foreign influence, right? And so, at the end of the day, there should be a bill that's targeted sa FIMI. Pero hindi mo siya ipapasok dito kasi hindi pwede naman lahat. The bill is becoming bigger and bigger, mostly because everyone thinks that their interest should be included here, which in our case shouldn't be. That's why the argument that we're making, make this bill about platform accountability and transparency and then leave out everything else for other modular bills or smaller bills that could specifically understand the problem and tackle it very narrowly.
There was, during the media discussion ng mga media groups, there was a comparison between when you're trying to address cancer,
Okay.
chemotherapy at saka yung radiation, which is more targeted. So ito parang chemotherapy.
Okay.
Lahat na lang nandoon. Tapos, it impacts on basic freedom. So, trying to address yung isang problem, yung cancer, even yung healthy and naapektuhan. So, kaya siya hindi maganda. So, I think that analogy is actually very...
Yeah. I like that also because, well, first of all, it's a very powerful, very vivid image, but also because it goes all the way back to Rizal. It's a social cancer, but this time taking a different form. Maybe just a last couple of questions. No?
Yeah.
I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, HB 9465 was part of the
LEDAC.
President's priorities, nasa LEDAC. But this year, tama ba yun? Parang wala na yata siya sa listahan.
Number 52.
Oh, number 52. Okay, hanggang number 50 lang yata yung nabasa ko. No, so nandun pa pala?
Nandun pa siya.
So if it's in a LEDAC priority list, good or bad?
Well, the way it's written, it's bad. And isipin mo, ano yung urgency nila for this, diba? Na hindi pa tapos yung consultations, hindi pa alam ng lahat ng tao. Bakit sobrang minabadali?
Yeah. But in our case, I think there are still pathways of, parang...
Mabait sila,
hindi siya, hindi to doom and gloom. Kasi naipasa sa level ng House. But at the level of the Senate, there's still... The Committee on Public Information is still consolidating comments. And so because of, thankfully, yung gulo na nangyari sa Senado with the changes on leadership, parang na-stall yung pagpasa ng bill. And most recently, parang nagkaroon ng committee chairmanship and it's still Robin Padilla who's the chair. So uusad ulit ang discussions na to. But it didn't move for a couple of months, maybe like 3 months, 2 months, mostly because of the gulo. At this point, yung what we can do is to talk to individual senators, especially the chair, to really shape kung ano yung magiging itsura ng bill na ito. Because sa House, it's a done deal. They've passed it on third reading. Wala na tayong magagawa doon. What we can do is talk to the senators and to argue why it's important to just limit it into a platform accountability and transparency bill and leave out all the penal provisions against individual persons. If we do that, then we can force a BICAM at the end of the day. And dun sa BICAM, we can talk to legislators again coming from the House to really shape the bill. Kasi I think given the traction that the campaign has been building, there was one instance wherein si Sandro Marcos responded to it because there was a specific question ng tipong about the dangers of the bill.
So it was a Rappler interview.
It was a Rappler interview. And so they understand that there is a lot of pushback. And so I think they will be willing to talk to CSOs and to change the shape of the bill at the end of the day. So hindi pa tapos ang laban. Yan yung punto dito.
I think we also need to look at the experience in other countries.
Yes.
Kung legislation ba talaga yung sagot sa information manipulation.
Singapore was first off the block, and look at what POFMA is doing.
Indonesia, binawi nila, di ba?
No, sa Malaysia yun.
Malaysia. They legislated and then binawi.
Binawi din several years after.
Last question. No? This has been a very exciting discussion. If we were to organize a forum and invite one key person that we can talk to, would it be Sandro Marcos, Majority Leader, lead sponsor of HB 9465? Would it be Senator Robin Padilla, who is the committee chair, or
just one?
Just one. Like if we were just to ask one, or I think I understand Tito Soto also has a counterpart bill or something. Yeah. Or does it have to be in should it be the president? Should it be the vice president? I don't know. But if it were only one, sino kaya yun? At parang then we can make a push na no, you have to temper this. It's too dangerous. And it will bite you. It will bite you when you're no longer in power.
Exactly. I think sa assessment namin baka si SP Win yung magandang approach, because again, we want to get at least the support of the majority of the senators to on this bill. Parang at this point, si Robin kasi because of the school shooting issue, 'di ba? Parang sobrang heated sobrang passionate to really legislate against platforms, which is actually in our favor because we also want to legislate against platforms. So, win definitely, but there would still be merit to talking to the committee.
It doesn't have to be a legislator, right?
Yeah.
So it can be somebody from Malacanang.
That's right.
After all, kaya siya nasa priority list is because of Malacanang. Wala naman talaga.
Well, there is a new secretary for the presidential legislative liaison. Si Joey Salceda could be.
Pwede.
Parang, can you move this down? Anyway, I would like to continue this conversation, but that's all the time that we have. This was most instructive. Rowena Paraan of PCIJ and Rossine Fallorina of Sigla Research Center, thank you very much for joining us in the public square. And that's it for us today. The challenge for engaged citizens remains the same: to fully inhabit the democratic space and to defend it in times of crisis. Download the Rappler Communities app and join the chat room of your choice. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Rappler Plus. Thank you. This is John Nery. See you in the public square.